When people talk about defeat, most of the time they describe it as something that comes from the outside. They point to the economy, to competition, to lack of resources, to the criticism of others, or to the situations that didn't work out in their favor. But the truth is, none of these things have the final authority to defeat you. They can slow you down, they can make the journey harder, they can even force you to take detours, but they cannot declare you finished. The only person who can truly defeat you is you. That's why defeat is an inside job. It begins in the mind long before it shows up in reality. Think about it. Failure happens to everyone. Disappointment visits all of us. You cannot live a life without setbacks, without mistakes, without unexpected turns. But those moments are not defeat in themselves. They are simply events. What turns those events into permanent defeat is the meaning you attach to them. If you fall once and call yourself a failure, then you have signed your own resignation letter. If someone rejects you and you start believing you are not good enough, you have just handed over your victory to another person's opinion. Defeat does not live in circumstances. It lives in the acceptance of a defeated identity when you understand that you realize how much power you actually have. Life can knock you down, but it cannot keep you down unless you decide to stay on the ground. And here is the part many people forget. Most people don't get defeated because of the blow. They get defeated because they convince themselves it is not worth standing up again. They surrender in the mind first, and only then does it show in their actions. That is why some people go through enormous difficulties yet still rise, while others collapse under smaller challenges. It's not about the size of the problem. It's about the size of the decision inside you. Let's imagine two people lose their job on the same day. One says, "This is proof I'm not capable. Nothing works for me. I might as well give up." The other says, "This is tough, but maybe it's a sign I should learn new skills. Maybe it's a chance to build something of my own. Maybe this is the opportunity I didn't see before." Same event, different response. One admitted defeat, the other refused to. And in the long run, their lives will move in completely different directions. That is why defeat is never about the event. It's about the interpretation you choose to accept. You see, no one can ever climb into your mind and force you to quit. They may doubt you. They may laugh at you. They may say you don't have what it takes. But those are just words until you accept them as truth. If you reject them, they lose their power. That's why the greatest battles are always internal. You can have a storm raging outside, but if you keep your inner conviction strong, the storm cannot sink you. But if you let your mind surrender, even the smallest wave will drown you. History is full of people who understood this principle. People who were counted out, overlooked, told they would never make it, yet they refused to believe it. They didn't deny the obstacles. They didn't pretend the pain wasn't real. But they also didn't let those obstacles write the ending of their story. They understood that defeat only becomes real when you embrace it as your identity. As long as you keep saying, "I'm still in the fight, I'm still learning, I'm still standing," you are not defeated. This is why self-talk is so powerful. What you repeatedly tell yourself in the quiet moments decides whether you are building a fortress of resilience or a trap of surrender. When you tell yourself, "I can't, it's over, there's no point," you are admitting defeat even before life has closed all doors. But when you say, "This is hard, but I'll find a way. I may have lost today, but tomorrow I rise again. I'm not finished yet," you build the kind of spirit that cannot be destroyed. The outside world has no power over a person who refuses to be defeated within. So when you face difficulties, when you encounter rejection, when life doesn't turn out the way you planned, ask yourself one question: have I truly been defeated, or am I simply being tested? Most of the time, the answer is that you are being tested. And if you treat it as a test, you grow stronger. You adapt, you learn, you get wiser. But if you treat it as a final judgment, you weaken yourself and you stop the journey. The danger is not in failing once. The danger is in deciding that failure defines you forever. That is when defeat truly takes hold, not in the event itself, but in the story you choose to believe about that event. The truth is, Every single person who ever achieved something worthwhile in life carried this mindset: defeat cannot touch me unless I let it inside. They had doubts, yes. They had moments of weakness, yes. But in the end, they refused to stamp their life with the label of defeat. They kept fighting, they kept moving, they kept believing. And because they never admitted defeat, life eventually had no choice but to hand them victory. Every person walking this earth carries a story of circumstances. Some are born into wealth, others into poverty. Some grow up surrounded by encouragement, others surrounded by doubt. Some meet opportunity early, others face struggle after struggle before they see even a glimpse of progress. But here is the truth: circumstances do not define you. They are chapters in your story, not the final title of your book. They can test your patience, your will, and your determination, but they cannot write your destiny unless you let them. The problem with many people is that they confuse temporary conditions with permanent identity. They go through a season of difficulty and begin to believe that this season is who they are. They lose money and begin to believe they are failures. They face rejection and begin to believe they are unworthy. They struggle in relationships and begin to believe they are unlovable. But circumstances are not definitions. They are moments. They are the soil in which your character is tested, your resilience is revealed, and your strength is built. To mistake them for your identity is to surrender your power to something that was only meant to shape you, not to imprison you. Think of the seed planted deep into the ground. From the outside, it looks as if the seed is buried, as if it has been trapped and forgotten. But in reality, that pressure, that darkness, that soil is the very environment that allows the seed to grow. The seed is being tested, but it is not defined by the soil. It will push through, break the ground, and reach toward the light. That's how life works. Your circumstances may feel heavy, but they are often the very ground from which your greatest growth will come. If you misunderstand them, you will stop reaching for the light. But if you see them as a test, you will rise. Consider how many people throughout history have started with nothing yet ended with influence. What separated them was not better circumstances, but better perspective. One person says, "I was born in poverty, therefore my life will always be small." Another says, "I was born in poverty, therefore I have a reason to fight, to learn, to grow, to change my family's story." The same starting line, yet two very different outcomes. The difference is not in what they faced, but in what they believed about what they faced. The first admitted the circumstance as a definition. The second treated the circumstance as a test, and tests are uncomfortable. They are designed to push you beyond your comfort zone, to stretch your capacity, to expose your weaknesses, and to demand your best. If life never tested you, you would never grow. Comfort zones may feel safe, but they are dangerous places because nothing improves there. Circumstances that test you may sting, they may hurt, they may bring you to tears, but they also carry the seeds of transformation. Without the test, you would remain the same. With the test, you discover who you really are. Think about how iron is strengthened. It must pass through fire. Gold is purified the same way. Diamonds are formed under intense pressure. None of these valuable things come into existence without challenge. And yet, once they emerge, they are stronger, brighter, and more valuable than before. If you see your circumstances through that same lens, you stop resenting them. You begin to see them as part of the process of becoming. The fire is not here to destroy you. It is here to refine you. The pressure is not here to crush you. It is here to reveal the diamond within you. It's also important to recognize that circumstances are not permanent. Seasons change. Winters may feel long, but spring eventually comes. Your struggles today may seem overwhelming, but they are not forever. You cannot treat today's pain as tomorrow's destiny. Many people quit because they mistake the test for the conclusion. They assume the delay means denial. They assume the hardship means hopelessness. But often, the test is simply preparing you for what you asked for. You said you wanted strength, so life gave you resistance. You said you wanted wisdom, so life gave you challenges. You said you wanted success, so life gave you setbacks to teach you persistence. If you interpret them correctly, you grow. If you misinterpret them, you quit. Remember that life does not ask you to control every circumstance. It only asks you to control your response. You cannot dictate where you were born, the family you came from, the obstacles that appear unexpectedly, or the behavior of other people. But you can dictate how you choose to interpret those things. That decision is yours, and it is the most powerful decision of all. Will you let the test define you, or will you let it refine you? Will you say, this is who I am now, or will you say, this is where I am now, but not where I will remain? That single shift in perspective changes everything, so the next time life hands you difficulty, remind yourself that this circumstance is not your identity. It is not a label to wear. It is a stage of your journey, a test of your endurance, a challenge to your mindset. It is asking you, will you grow or will you surrender? And every time you choose to grow, every time you refuse to let the circumstance dictate your worth, you take one more step toward the life you were meant to live. Life is unpredictable. It throws challenges at you when you least expect them. It brings losses when you thought you were about to win, and it delivers surprises that can either shake you or shape you. But the crucial point is this: it's not what happens to you that decides your future. It's how you respond. The same storm can sink one ship and carry another to new shores. The difference is not in the storm itself, but in the way the sailor responds. This principle applies to every area of life because events are neutral until you attach your reaction to them. Your response is the paintbrush that colors the outcome. Consider the fact that two people can face the exact same situation, but end up in completely different places. One person loses a job and spirals into despair, blaming the world, convincing themselves that they will never succeed again. Another person loses the same kind of job, but treats it as an opportunity to upgrade their skills, to pivot into something new, or to build something on their own. The event is the same, but the response is radically different, and so are the results. That's why your response is more powerful than the event itself. The event is fixed in time, but your response is flexible. It's a choice, and that choice creates the path forward. Many people live under the illusion that life's outcomes are determined solely by luck, circumstances, or the decisions of others. But if that were true, then nobody would rise from poverty, nobody would overcome sickness, nobody would achieve greatness after rejection. And yet history is full of stories of individuals who had every reason to quit, who had circumstances stacked against them, who had people doubting them, and still they triumphed. What made the difference? It was their response. They didn't deny reality, but they also didn't surrender to it. They responded with courage, resilience, and determination, and that shifted the entire direction of their lives. Think about the power of attitude. Attitude is simply your chosen response to life's conditions. You cannot control all conditions, but you can control your attitude. If you carry a bitter attitude, you see every challenge as proof that life is unfair. If you carry a hopeful attitude, you see every challenge as proof that life is stretching you for something bigger. Attitude doesn't remove the problem, but it changes the way you approach the problem. And when you change the way you approach the problem itself begins to change its shape. A challenge you once thought would crush you becomes a stepping stone because you responded with strength instead of surrender, even in relationships. This principle holds true. People may say hurtful things, they may disappoint you, they may even betray you. But how you respond decides whether you live with bitterness or with freedom. If you respond with anger, you chain yourself to their words. If you respond with understanding or forgiveness, you release yourself from the weight of resentment. The response becomes the key that unlocks peace of mind. This is not about ignoring what people do. It's about refusing to let their actions dictate your inner world. You hold that power, and the outcome of your emotional health depends on how you choose to respond. It's also worth understanding that response is not automatic. It's practiced. When life hits you suddenly, your instinct may be to panic, to complain, or to give up. But with awareness, you can train yourself to pause, to reflect, and to choose a better response. That pause is powerful. It gives you a gap between the event and your reaction, and in that gap lies your freedom. Most people waste the gap by reacting impulsively, but those who use it wisely shape outcomes in their favor. They ask, what can I learn here? What is this teaching me? How can I turn this into fuel instead of letting it drain me? Those questions produce better responses, and better responses produce better results. Think of a boxer in the ring. When he gets hit, the crowd might think he's finished. But what does he do? He responds. He adjusts his stance. He protects himself. He waits for an opening, and then he fights back. Getting hit is inevitable in a fight, just like challenges are inevitable in life. But defeat only comes if he refuses to respond. As long as he keeps responding, there is still a chance for victory. Life works the same way. The hits are unavoidable, but your response keeps the fight alive. Your response also shapes your identity. Each time you choose to respond with persistence instead of quitting, you reinforce the belief that you are resilient. Each time you respond with courage instead of fear, you strengthen your inner confidence. And each time you respond with hope instead of despair, you train your mind to see possibilities instead of limitations. Over time, these responses become habits, and those habits become the foundation of who you are. You are not just defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you continuously respond to what happens to you. So when life presents you with setbacks, you must remember that the event itself is not the end of the story. The outcome is still unwritten, and it will be written by your response. Will you let the event dictate your direction, or will you take charge of your reaction and redirect the course? That decision is always in your hands, and it is in that decision where real power lies. Resilience is one of those qualities that separates those who merely survive from those who ultimately thrive. It is the invisible armor that protects you when life tries to knock you down. Resilience does not mean you will never face hardship. It does not mean you will never feel pain, sadness, or disappointment. What it means is that no matter how hard you are hit, you refuse to stay down. It means you carry the strength to rise again and again, even when the odds are against you. Resilience is not about avoiding difficulty. It is about outlasting it. When you study the lives of people who achieved greatness, you notice something remarkable. They were not always the most talented, the most gifted, or the most privileged. In many cases, they were ordinary individuals who had to endure extraordinary struggles. What set them apart was not that life was easy for them, but that they refused to be broken by what was difficult. They carried resilience in their spirit, and that resilience became their greatest asset. The storms came, but they outlasted the storms. The failures came, but they outlasted the failures. Resilience gave them staying power. Think of resilience as a muscle. Just like physical muscles grow stronger when you put them under stress, your inner resilience grows when it is tested. If you never face challenges, you would never develop toughness. If life was always smooth, you would never know your true strength. It is in the days of adversity, in the seasons of pressure, in the moments when you feel like giving up, that resilience is built. Every time you endure, every time you bounce back, every time you keep going when it would have been easier to quit, you strengthen that muscle. And the stronger it becomes, the less any circumstance can defeat you. Resilience also changes the way you look at setbacks. Without resilience, every failure feels final. Every rejection feels personal. Every obstacle feels like a wall you cannot get past. But with resilience, you begin to see setbacks as stepping stones. You understand that a failure is not a verdict, it is a lesson. You understand that rejection is not the end, it is redirection. You understand that obstacles are not there to stop you, they are there to make you creative, resourceful, and determined. Resilience shifts your mindset from why me to what now. That single shift can change the entire trajectory of your life. Consider the way nature demonstrates resilience. A tree may bend in the storm, but it does not break. Its roots are deep, and because of that, it can withstand the force of the wind. Grass may be stepped on, but it rises again when the weight is lifted. Rivers may be blocked by rocks, but they find new paths to flow. Nature shows us resilience in countless ways, reminding us that survival and growth depend not on avoiding difficulty, but on adapting and enduring through it. The same principle applies to your life. You cannot avoid every storm, but you can develop the roots, the flexibility, and the determination to withstand them. Resilience also creates confidence. When you look back on the hardships you've already survived, you begin to realize that you are stronger than you once thought. That awareness gives you courage for the future. You know that if you survived before, you can survive again. You know that if you overcame once, you can overcome again. This self-trust is powerful because it allows you to step into challenges without fear of collapse. You may not know exactly how you will solve the problem, but you trust that your resilience will carry you through. And that trust is often the difference between pressing on and giving up. But resilience is not built by accident. It requires intention. You build resilience by choosing not to quit when quitting feels easier. You build it by choosing to look for the lesson instead of wallowing in self-pity. You build it by staying committed to your values and goals even when the path becomes uncertain. With each choice, you reinforce the belief that you are not fragile but capable, not helpless but resourceful, not defeated but determined. And as this belief grows, your resilience becomes part of your identity. It becomes who you are, not just what you do. There is also an emotional side to resilience. Life will hurt you at times. People will let you down. Dreams will be delayed. Losses will occur. Resilience does not mean you ignore the pain. It means you acknowledge it, you process it, but you don't let it consume you. You allow yourself to feel, but you also allow yourself to heal. You understand that healing takes time, but you also know that time alone does not heal. It is your decision to rise that heals. That decision is resilience in action, and it is one of the most powerful decisions you will ever make. So resilience is not just a trait. It is a choice, a habit, a way of living. It is waking up each morning determined to keep going no matter what yesterday looked like. It is reminding yourself that the story is not finished yet. It is carrying a quiet but unshakable belief that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you will not stay down. That belief is what makes resilience the power that keeps you moving forward when everything else tries to hold you back. In every challenge, in every setback, and in every crossroad you face in life, there is one element that remains under your complete authority, your decision. You may not control the weather, the economy, or the behavior of other people. You may not control when hardships arrive or how long they last. But you always control the decision you make in response to them. And that decision is powerful enough to shape the entire outcome of your life. Control does not belong to circumstances. It belongs to you, to the choice you make in the face of circumstances. Many people underestimate the power of decision because they imagine life is mostly controlled by outside forces. They say things like, if only the conditions were better, then I could succeed, or if only people supported me, then I would keep going. But what they fail to realize is that conditions do not create destiny. Decisions do. It is not the absence of problems that makes a life successful. It is the presence of decisions made with courage and clarity despite the problems. You can face the same external situation as someone else, yet end up with an entirely different future because you made a different decision. Think about how many defining moments in history, in business, in sports, in personal lives, came down to a single decision. One person decided to keep going when everything around them suggested they should quit. Another decided to take a risk when fear told them to stay comfortable. Another decided to stand for their values when it would have been easier to compromise. These decisions did not come from perfect circumstances. They came from people who understood that the greatest control they would ever have was in the choices they made. When you understand this, you begin to see that excuses are simply misplaced decisions. To say, I can't, is not a fact, it is a decision. To say, it's over, is not destiny, it is a decision. To say, I will try again, is not guaranteed success, but it is also a decision, and one that keeps possibility alive. Every day, you are making decisions that either move you closer to strength or closer to surrender. Some are small, like choosing to get up early, to stay disciplined, to learn instead of waste time. Others are big, like choosing whether to continue a dream after a painful failure or whether to stand up after a rejection. But all of them accumulate. All of them form the shape of your life. It is also important to recognize that not making a decision is itself a decision. When you refuse to choose, you are still choosing to let circumstances or other people decide for you. That is the most dangerous place to live because you surrender the one power that is uniquely yours. Life will always ask you a question. Will you quit or will you continue? Will you take responsibility Or will you shift the blame? Will you act, or will you wait for someone else? The answers to these questions are never dictated by outside forces. They are dictated by you. And the moment you answer them with conviction, you reclaim control. This is why people who seem unshakable are not necessarily those with the easiest lives, but those who have mastered the art of decision. They decide not to give up no matter the struggle. They decide to keep faith in themselves no matter the rejection. They decide to work on themselves even when no one is watching. These are not accidental outcomes. They are deliberate choices repeated daily. Over time, those choices form unshakable confidence, and that confidence gives them the appearance of control. But the truth is, they are not controlling life. They are controlling their decisions, and that is what gives them power. Control also lies in the decision to interpret circumstances differently. Two people can face the same event, but their decisions about how to interpret it change everything. One decides this is the end, while the other decides this is the beginning of something new. One decides this obstacle proves I should stop, while the other decides this obstacle proves I must grow stronger. The event itself does not determine the direction. It is the decision about the event that does. And that decision is entirely within your hands. Of course, decisions are not always easy. Fear, doubt, and uncertainty try to cloud your judgment. But that is why decision making itself is an act of courage. It is standing in the middle of confusion and saying, I will choose. It is standing in the middle of fear and saying, I will act. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move despite fear. That is why decisions are so powerful. They give you movement, and movement breaks the grip of fear. The moment you decide, you reclaim momentum, and momentum carries you forward even when the path is unclear. The quality of your life, in the end, comes down to the quality of your decisions. If you decide to give up easily, life will reflect that back to you with a pattern of unfinished efforts. If you decide to stand firm, life will reflect that back to you with growth and progress. If you decide to blame circumstances, you will lie powerless. But if you decide to take responsibility, you will live empowered. Every great transformation begins with a decision. Every great breakthrough is born out of a choice made in a moment of uncertainty. Control has never belonged to conditions. It has always belonged to the decisions you are willing to make. Persistence is the bridge that carries you from failure to success, from disappointment to accomplishment, from setback to breakthrough. Talent can open doors. Intelligence can create opportunities. Resources can give you an advantage. But without persistence, none of these will last. Persistence is the decision to keep going when enthusiasm has faded, when progress is slow, when obstacles are heavy, and when the temptation to quit whispers in your ear. Victory does not come to the one who starts fast. It comes to the one who refuses to stop. Life has a way of testing persistence. The beginning of any journey often feels exciting. The first step carries energy, the vision is clear, and the dream feels alive. But as time passes, the challenges show up. Results are slower than expected. People doubt you. Failures appear more frequently than victories. This is where most people quit. They mistake the delay for denial, the setback for a signal that they should stop. But persistence understands something deeper. It understands that progress is not always visible at first, that growth is often silent, and that breakthroughs usually come after the point when most have already given up. The soil hides the seed for a long time before the sprout appears. Persistence is what keeps watering the soil even when nothing seems to be happening. Look at anyone who achieves something significant, and you will see persistence as the common thread. They did not get there because every door opened easily. They got there because every time a door closed, they knocked again. And if knocking did not work, they found another door. They refused to accept no as the final answer. Every rejection became a reason to improve. Every failure became a lesson. Every obstacle became fuel for determination. Persistence is not blind stubbornness. It is intelligent endurance. It is refusing to stop while also learning, adapting, and growing along the way. Persistence also builds credibility with yourself. Each time you persist, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted to finish what you started. This inner trust is powerful because it eliminates doubt. You no longer wonder if you will quit halfway. you know that you will continue. That certainty gives you strength to take on bigger challenges because you already carry the evidence that you are capable of enduring. Many people lack confidence not because they lack ability, but because they have trained themselves to quit. They start something, quit, start again, quit again, and eventually they no longer trust themselves. Persistence reverses that cycle. It builds a foundation of self-belief that cannot be shaken by temporary setbacks. There is also a compounding effect in persistence. Small, consistent actions done daily seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they build into extraordinary results. The person who keeps learning a little each day will eventually surpass the one who studies intensely but inconsistently. The person who saves a little money persistently will build wealth, while others chase quick gains and lose it all. The person who trains persistently, even when motivation is low, will grow stronger than the one who trains only when it feels convenient. Persistence multiplies results because time rewards consistency. It is not the grand effort once in a while that wins, but the steady effort repeated over and over. Persistence is also a shield against discouragement. Life will give you plenty of reasons to stop: failure, rejection, criticism, comparison. But persistence speaks louder than all of them. It says, I will not stop here. It gives you the ability to outlast the noise of doubt, both from others and from yourself. Sometimes victory is not about being the fastest, the smartest, or the strongest. It is simply about being the last one still standing, the one who refused to leave the race when everyone else decided it was too hard. Persistence gives you that advantage because it outlives discouragement. Think of water hitting a rock. A single drop does nothing. But when the drops keep falling day after day, year after year, eventually the rock is carved. That is persistence. It may not look powerful in the moment, but over time, it accomplishes what force alone cannot. Life's obstacles are like that rock. They seem immovable at first. But if you keep pressing, keep pushing, keep showing up, eventually they give way. Victory belongs not to the one who hits once with great strength, but to the one who keeps striking with steady determination. Persistence also aligns you with opportunity. Many times, success is not about being lucky, but about being present long enough for luck to find you. Opportunities appear, but only for those who are still in the game. If you quit early, you miss the very chance that persistence was preparing you for. Staying in motion, staying engaged, staying committed keeps you in the flow of possibilities. And when that one opening appears, the persistent are ready to seize it because they never left the field. Victory belongs to the persistent because persistence is proof of desire. It proves that you want the goal badly enough to endure the struggle. It proves that your dream is more important than your comfort. It proves that you are willing to pay the price in time, effort, and patience. And life respects persistence. It may resist you for a while, but eventually it yields to the one who refuses to give up. Life will always present its share of storms, obstacles, and challenges. There will be moments when failure knocks you down, when rejection stings deeply, when progress feels slow, and when doubt creeps into your mind. But in all of these moments, the truth remains the same. No one can defeat you unless you accept defeat yourself. Defeat is never in the circumstance. It is in the decision to stop fighting. Circumstances are tests, not definitions. Your response is more powerful than the event itself. Resilience becomes your armor, decisions become your steering wheel, and persistence becomes the bridge that carries you forward. These principles remind you that ultimate control rests not in what happens to you, but in what you choose to do with what happens. As long as you refuse to surrender within, as long as you rise again after every fall, as long as you keep moving one step further when others would quit, you will find that defeat is only temporary and victory eventually belongs to you.